the protectors of society looked at as good,
Great analogy.
because that's the way they want you to see it, are the ones who are defending us against the Most High. But isn't that exactly what the Bible tells us is going to happen? And I think that if the believer doesn't know that there are entities out there, then they're very naive and they haven't read the Bible, because all through the Bible, there are entities that visit mankind. But what I do think that we're going to see in 2026 is AI becoming more powerful than we ever imagined in such a quick amount of time.
If anybody believes that, I feel bad for you. Welcome to Geisinger Unfiltered. We have an awesome episode today with the Jon Pounders with us. And let me intro him officially. I'll just say, hey, Jon, thanks for coming on first.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me, dude. It's good to finally... I mean, we haven't done a broadcast together in probably years, if we ever did one to begin with. I know we talked a long time ago, but it's great to be on and do one again.
Years and years. Well, let me know what you think of this intro. See if this matches up. Jon Pounders is a relentless investigator of the shadows, an explorer of forbidden history and hidden agendas, and as the founder of Now You See TV, he spent years peeling back the layers of deception, censorship, and spiritual warfare shaping our world. And now... his latest venture, Pounders Quest, a captivating journey, extraordinary stories where Jon sits down with awesome guests who inspire, inform, and intrigue, science, art, adventure, untold tales. Pounders Quest is your destination for engaging interviews that ask tough questions. So that's what we have on tap today.
I like it, man. It makes me sound way cooler than I actually am. I love it.
No. Well, catch us up a little bit. How did Pounders, before we get into some of these topics like Tartaria and short season or post-millennial theory, the alien question, and more, we've got those on the docket for today. But just catch us up. How did Pounders Quest come about from where you were and where you're at now?
So I've been doing YouTube since about 2010. That's when I actually started my other channel that was Now You See TV. And when I started it, it was really about interviewing people and just kind of understanding other people's testimonies, what they had to say about what they learned, whether they're an author or whatever. And over time, it kind of developed more to doing my own research, and I had more to say. So I started doing the show called The Midnight Ride, and we kind of started doing bi-weekly. 1 week I would research and have a topic, and then 1 week David would research and have a topic. And so we were going back and forth. But over the years, I realized very quickly, I guess, especially within the last 5 years, that a lot of the stuff that I thought was probably not true, just because I kept seeing these holes in history and these different things that didn't line up the way I thought they did. And so I kind of had to change my paradigm a little bit about what I believed to be correct and not correct. I guess once you hit a place where you're actually, you figure out you're wrong multiple times over and over again, and maybe you were a little arrogant or dogmatic about how right you were before.
Yeah.
It really kind of puts you in another place to rethink like how you do things. And Pounders Quest is kind of a representation of that. Me interviewing different people, also doing my own broadcasts, but it's just like my quest for truth. I believe I found truth in Christ, but it's also a quest for the rest of things that I really don't quite understand that maybe I thought I did in the past.
Wow, cool. Well, I did see, snooping through all your stuff, I do see that you're not afraid of the Tartaria mud floods conspiracy theory. And, it's kind of funny how the world has changed, is that when you and me were dealing with each other a couple of years ago, that was not even on the radar. Nobody was talking about that. And now when you get into this World's Fair, that just a casual looking into it, there's no way they built that stuff in 2 years. Why would they get rid of it all? How was it built? By whom? What is your take on the Tartaria mud floods conspiracy?
Well, let me tell you something that you probably don't know, but the first time I really got my claws into Tartaria was the same day that I met you and your family. We were at this conference, and then we were at this Airbnb, and I don't know if you remember this or not, but there were globes all over the Airbnb. I mean, a couple in every room. And on some of them was this giant mass of land called Tartaria. And I had heard other people talking about it before, and it was just like one of those things where I'm like, I'm already got my knees deep on all kinds of conspiracies. This one's not really that interesting, because what I had read about it wasn't as interesting as what it actually is. And so then I saw that and I'm like, man, well, maybe this is a sign that I actually need to look into this further. And I can't remember what year that was. This was a conference out there in the Ozarks that I had been to, and then we met up. You came by the Airbnb where we were at, but that's how long ago I've been researching it. So I dug a little bit deeper into it, and I found some CIA documents that were unclassified now, and you can find those right now. Just type in CIA docs Tartaria, and what it discloses is that there were a group of people, which were the communists and people who had taken over the Russian Republic, or whatever you want to call it now. It's the Soviet Union. And they had a directive to hide all about Tartaria so that nobody could really figure out what it was. So they banished all the history about it, got rid of it. There's not a whole lot out there on it. I mean, there's a lot of speculation on what Tartaria was, and there are some Russian books by Fomenko. Anatoly Fomenko wrote some books that are just being translated into English. I think there's a couple more that haven't, but this is the only thing we have about this supposedly massive kingdom that existed
worldwide,
not very long ago. Yeah,
but
worldwide.
I mean, if these structures were there, if the World's Fairs were there as a cover up to this, they were already there. It'd be clearly Buffalo, San Francisco, St. Louis. These structures were, and Chicago was the most ridiculous of all of them. There's so many things, John, that is like, how could you have so many people involved in this cover up? I mean, wasn't there Lewis and Clark expeditions and journals? People would have been stumbling upon these things and saying, hey, we came over this ridge and there is a city here abandoned.
It seems like they found some of that stuff, though. You know, you see Templar, materials all over the United States. You have random pyramids that are being discovered, and you have buildings that we can't even build anymore that are still here. I mean, in Evansville, Indiana, for instance, which is one of the closer, bigger cities to where I'm at, that has this beautiful old courthouse, and it's got all of these Greek and Roman gods all over the top. And there's just really no record of somebody who's able to build those kind of things around this area. It's just, there's nothing like it. People still don't build it. And so a lot of people think the cover up, and I'll give you kind of a rundown of how I think it was covered up. It involves orphan trains, it involves secret societies, and it involves actors that are still around to this day. And if you can find this clip, I'll send it to you later, but you'll hear clips of actors saying that their parents were actually incubator babies in the World's Fair. Seinfeld, for instance, not joking about it. That's who his father was in the early 1900s, an incubator baby in these World Fairs.
Do either of you have any sense of how far back your ancestries go in New York? Have you ever?
I'm about the same, early 1900s. My dad was an incubator baby in Coney Island. He was on display. They had just invented the incubator. He was.
You could literally tell me anything, I'd believe.
No, it's true.
Yeah.
And if you look at shows like, I think Little Rascals is one of the shows that really kind of actually details what we're talking about here. And I'm not so sure if you know about this, your audience knows about this, but if you type in Google and you research Odd Fellows, the Order of the Odd Fellows, and Odd Fellow asylums, there were asylums that are still here to this day all over the world where people were admitted to asylums. We're talking about millions of people admitted to asylums and being crazy for any multiple reasons. And then we have millions of orphans being shuttled from all over across the world, being sold at world fairs and being infiltrated into this country. So in my mind, I'm thinking it could be possible that there was just a reset of people's minds. If you put all the people that know anything in asylums, and then you raise up a bunch of orphans in Odd Fellow secret societies, which is exactly where, you're talking about Albert Pike, the guy that started the Three Ring Circus. The Three Rings is the symbol of the Odd Fellows.
Barnum
all of
and
these
Bailey?
actors, Barnum and Bailey, all of these actors come from these secret societies, these Odd Fellow orphanages. Almost every single old actor from the early 1900s there on, they came from these orphanages, or their parents were part of this orphanage.
Or
It's,
in
it's
the
really
asylums.
uncanny.
But John, let me tell you about a conspiracy theory. I mean, that's what this show does. We're not afraid of any, and I don't know what I think of this one yet. I am investigating this one.
Right.
It's the post-millennial short season theory, and let me just take like 20 seconds to set it up for our audience, and you can respond. So diving into this came to my attention not that long ago under the Tartaria thing, because a lot of these very high-end architectural structures don't seem to have a way to heat and cool them, no bathroom systems in some of the nicest places, huge doors that don't really make sense. And so what people have postulated, when you take in the book of Revelation biblical account, where after Christ's millennial reign, 1,000 years, for some reason the great creator is going to let Lucifer go again to gather the nations for one last battle. And so people are saying that post-millennialism, and you believe I'm not an expert, so you can kind of set me right on this. So that already happened, and that's been a couple hundred years ago since the saints went away, got to safety. Lucifer's released. That's what caused the worldwide mud floods. And then the Statue of Liberty is actually a statue of Lucifer, showing that he's broken his chain at the feet of that. It clearly looks like a man in my image now. And that if the angelic, immortal, those in Christ who have been ferried off in the camp of the saints to safety before he was released, then that means that the mortals that have been breeding in generations and generations for 1,000 years were all in the four corners of the earth. But when the angelic society went away from all of this architecture, that's the Tartarian, it was an angelic. That's how they could build it. It was the angels, right? So once they go, all this stuff is abandoned. So that's when the orphan trains start bringing in people to populate these areas where the immortals were whisked out of during this short season of Satan, while he gathers the nations for one last battle. What say you on this post-millennial theory?
This is one of those things to me that is really hard to answer, because eschatology, there's been so many people that have come before us, even the original church fathers, the anti-Nicene, which not anti-Nicene, but anti, which means before, they weren't even 100% in agreement on where we are in eschatology. So for me to pretend like I actually understand eschatology 100% would be ingenuine and at the least. And there's a lot of people out there that I think have, suffer from Dunning-Kruger, which is you don't even know what you don't know. You're so ignorant, you don't even know what you don't know. And I don't want to be in that place. And I definitely don't want to be in that place thinking like I know exactly what's going on. But what you mentioned, those things you mentioned are interesting. They're curious, because the Statue of Liberty thing. And let me tell you about a little research that I've done. As far as I know, nobody else has done this research or thought about this, because I haven't seen anybody else talk about it. It doesn't mean that it isn't out there, and there's nothing new under the sun. But from my calculations in the scriptures, from the time of Adam until the time of the flood is 1,776 years. So we have AM, that's the AM time, not BC, not AD, but AM, which means from the time of the beginning until the time of to whatever time we're going through. So like if we're talking about now, we'd be somewhere around 6,000 or 7,000 AM. But the flood happened according to all the calculations that I've done, and I actually looked at other people's calculations of genealogy that matched up with mine, and they'll show you the genealogies up to the certain point. And then there's the curse that that God says that man will be 120 years. Because my spirit's not going to strive. A lot of people interpret that to mean that you're only going to live 120 years, but we know that's not true. People lived longer than that after the flood, and even today there are people that live longer than 120 years. But in fact, what he was talking about, it's going to be 120 days from this day that I'm telling you this until the flood. This is 120 years, and then the flood happens, and that gives Noah the time building the ark and doing all the different things. And then, so if you do the genealogies, you count that, you add 120 years, you come to 1776. And in my mind, 1776 is when the Illuminists came and took over this land.
Yeah.
And there may be something to 1776, why they chose 1776, because we know that according to a lot of other mythologies and scriptures that their children were killed in that flood. Their children were killed, and there's a vendetta that is formed against it. that doesn't mean that Satan was unleashed, but it does, in my mind, it equals a possibility of something else being unleashed. And I don't know how, if you believe the Book of Enoch or have any affinity towards it.
Yes, I do.
But okay, good. So in the Book of Enoch, there were 200 angels that were chained because of their transgressions of mating with women. And the Book of Enoch tells us it'll be 70 generations before they are unleashed. And interestingly enough, that 70 generations, doing biblical calculations, takes us to around anywhere from 1700 to 1900 AD, depending on how where we actually are in history, because I believe the calendars are probably a tad bit off, just because there's recorded history that you can't verify, such as the Dark Ages. There's these the only histories you have of it are the history of the kings of England, and they get weird at that time. They go from talking about like the king lineages and all these things, all of the things that they did, the wars they fought, etc. And then you get King Arthur, and you've got Hermit was the guy that has the cane, the wizard that he always had with him, like you see in the movies, King Arthur and the Stone.
Yeah.
Then it becomes like almost a mythology for a few hundred years during these Dark Ages, and there's really no archaeological, physical evidence of even a guy named King Arthur existing. There's other people that seem to fit King Arthur's description in history, but King Arthur himself, there's no real like definitive evidence that he even existed. And so anyways, the point is somewhere around the 1700s to the 1900s is when this 70 generations ends. Azazel is chained forever. According to the scriptures, Azazel, or according to Enoch, he's not being released until the judgment, but there were 199 more led by Semyaza who are actually going to be released in the final time. You also have the 4 angels that are chained in the Euphrates. You have other entities that are coming up. So just because of this doesn't necessarily mean it's Satan little season, but it does mean to me, I believe, and this is, theory because I haven't seen it with my own eyes, but I believe that something else, if not Satan, is unleashed on the earth and is deceiving the nations. And the reason that I can't believe history is because the same lineage, the same people, the same powerful people that run our news networks right now, and we can't even trust that, are the same people who allowed certain books to prevail in history. They're the ones who allowed the Alexandrian library to be burnt down. There's a lot going on here that's hidden.
Well,
and so I can't really make a definitive statement on that.
In our little mini episode after this, we're going to record something for Geisinger Unfiltered Pro that will only be behind my firewall, and I'm gonna ask you questions about those we are not allowed to speak of. There, the blue square, the trouble, those that we don't speak of. So we'll be able to let it fly, hopefully fearlessly after that. But so you're saying that these watchers could have been released at the end of those generations as well. What do you make of how does this crisscross with the whole alien questions? You have Spielberg's new movie Disclosure Day coming up, where Emily Blunt is taken over with an entity and she speaks, and they're gonna. I mean, I do quite a breakdown on this. You probably have too, where there's animal spirits and she's the cardinal and maybe the man is the deer, but the animals know that they're here before we do because we're last to know. But during that teaser trailer, men's eyes are opened, their irises get big, the color comes into them. I mean, isn't that the original lie from the garden? Is like, well, you surely won't die, but your eyes will be opened and you'll know the truth, being like God. I mean, they're putting it right in they're here, they're going to enlighten us, right? So what does this mean, and what do you think of the movie, the timing for all of this, what's going to happen?
Man, I think that when I look at a lot of these movies, I realize that there's an agenda for sure, because they want us to see it how they want us to see it. They don't want us to see it how it actually is. They never, I don't believe that they do. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they're very great people. Maybe Spielberg is just, I can't wait to let people know the truth. But there's that part of me that is untrusting when it comes to that. For some reason or other, I don't know why I wouldn't trust Hollywood, but I just, it's one of those things. just a little paranoid maybe, but either way. So you look at that, and then you have a bunch of different entities, I believe, that we're dealing with. I don't think it's just as cut and dry as angels, because they may be angels of some sort. This is the vernacular used in the scripture, but there's so many different types. There's the watchers that are maybe different than the cherubs, that are different than the seraphim. Different. There's other kinds of angels even mentioned, the ones that fly and do all these ophonims and stuff. So there's a bunch of different types of entities mentioned. And I believe that there's also hybrids out there. So whatever we're dealing with, it could be I'll just tell you what I think. How about that? Because honestly, there's no way to know.
Yeah.
They'll let it fly. What I think is that there are a powerful group of entities that have been cast to earth. 1/3 of the angels, possibly, that has possibly happened right now, as it states in Revelation. And I think that they can masquerade as human, and they are shapeshifters, especially the ones who are seraphim, that are able to manifest in different ways, because I've done a biblical study on this idea, but many of these angels are able to change form as they approach man. It's interesting because there's only 199 original Hollywood stars, and everything after that is an addition to that. And when I think of stars in the Bible, the term stars represents angelic entities. There's almost synonymous. Now you have the words luminaries that are, what the big balls of gas that we see in the sky, or the planets, or whatever you want to call it. They have those disguises called luminaries, etc. But the stars almost always are representative of entities. And so we have stars on earth that are worshiped. They want to be worshiped. They roam around to be worshiped. And there's also those that I believe are a little bit more gritty, a little bit more designed for other services, such as maybe genetically testing other people. And I think that they're working together with the government, which is why the government would have a hand in Spielberg's movie. And for those of your listeners that don't know that, if you look at how long the military has had their claws in Hollywood, it'll make you rethink everything that you've seen from them, because they are prophesying. Don't be naive to think that every movie that comes out isn't carefully crafted for a reason.
Isn't Disclosure Day meant to reduce panic when they finally do announce it? That, hey, come on now, this is going to be scary, but look at this movie. Look at the people who are overreacting. You don't want to be like one of them. It's going to be okay. I mean, right at the beginning of that teaser, it's like, what would you do if you knew for sure that we weren't alone? How would you react? And the truth belongs to 7 billion people. So we deserve to know, and just know that they're good and they're going to enlighten us. I mean, of course I don't trust them. Of course the 3-letter agencies are all over manhandling all of the production. But I mean, isn't Disclosure Day to soft disclose and to reduce panic?
I think that's probably part of it, because they don't want people flipping out, and maybe they want them accepting whatever's coming. I don't really know for sure, but I wouldn't give them too much of a pass on all of these things. I think that if they're working in Hollywood, there's no chance that their message is not filtered before it comes out the way that the government wants us to see it. And I think that if a believer doesn't know that there are entities out there, then they're very naive and they haven't read the Bible, because all through the Bible, there are entities that visit mankind. And no, I don't believe they're all evil. I believe that there are good angels that are out there as well. The scriptures tell us that we're entertaining angels unaware. And so when we're doing these things, we're supposed to test the spirits of anything that we come across. If it doesn't testify, according to the Bible, if it doesn't testify Christ, then it's let it be accursed, right? Just completely leave that entity to itself. And I do believe over my time I've met entities, good and bad, and maybe I can't prove that. Nobody can prove that, but you'll have situations where the curiosity of these angelic beings is overwhelming, especially to believers, because they don't understand the the secret that took place, what happened. And the Bible talks about that. The angels are, curious about what's going on. And so you will entertain angels, whether you like it or not, or whether you know it or not. And there are good and bad. But I think that, there's so many movies that they're almost dual
Purpose.
Yeah, dual purpose, but also like contradictory. So some movies you'll have these aliens come and the whole world's fighting against them, shooting them with military weapons, and then some movies you'll have it to where they're your friends.
Oh, there's
And
going
I
to be
think-
good guys and bad guys. There'll be good
Absolutely.
guys
And
and bad guys.
I think the bad guys, what they're classifying as the bad guys, are probably switch. So you can almost switch because God's going to look like a bad guy when he comes to this world. He's going to look like a bad boy that's coming to destroy the world, and they don't want that. And so their idea of what's bad and good is flipped. You can see it in the movie, the Marvel movie, where you have Thanos, where he comes and he is the destroyer of worlds, which is what Yahweh is. He's the one that can destroy the whole world. He's the one that created it. He's the one that can destroy it. And when he comes, they're fighting against him, and all of these Nephilim, I guess you could call it, these Marvel Nephilim that are the protectors of society, looked at as good
Great analogy.
because that's the way they want you to see it, are the ones who are defending us against the Most High. But isn't that exactly what the Bible tells us is going to happen? They're going to fight against the Most High. And I've talked to high-level Luciferians, 33rd degree. They want another chance. They think they can win. That's what it is. But the more people agree with that, the more money they can sift out of us to get weapons that they're going to need, because this trillions of dollars aren't for server centers. They have all those server centers. They've had them for a long time. AI has been out since the 70s. They're taking that money and they're spending it on weapon testing. That's why you see these proxy wars going on all over the world.
To
Like,
fight
what does
against
this weapon
God.
do?
To
What
fight
does
against
this
God. What a
weapon do?
ridiculous
It's to fight against
process.
God.
Hey, on that short season, though, too, if you could carry that thing in that we didn't get to, was that, Warner von Braun said the last great deception was going to be the lie that they're going to have to build space-based weapons against something. And then Jeremy Corbell is saying, it wasn't 3-Eye Atlas, but something really, really big is coming. And they're going to lie about that because they have to build space-based weapons against it. And then you have the late Father Malachi Martin, who said right on Coast to Coast, the Vatican knows of something big approaching the earth. Though a short season actually goes, and I need to educate myself more on this, they literally say it could be the good guys. It could be the camp of the saints returning after Lucifer's short season. And literally they're trying to make space-based, whatever this is, weapons, like what you just described, John. You just nailed it. Yeah. So all this is a cover to make weapons to war against his return. And they're gonna, like you said, it's gonna be the Nephilim armies getting the tomb, raiding the tomb of Gilgamesh, upgrading themselves to be godlike men and to get ready for this one last battle. And like you said, you talk to enough people, says they think they have a chance.
They think they have a chance, man. That's why all of these Silicon Valley billionaires, they're putting everything into this. I mean, they're sparing no resources. There's millions and trillions and billions that have been missing through black budget deals for a long, long time. And people see it so black and white. I get a lot of flack for telling the truth about this because it's just really hard for people to understand that what they're seeing on the TV is actually a fabrication of reality. It is akin to watching WWE. There's internationalists controlling all sides of this coin to a certain point. There's going to be a battle between a certain faction and another faction, which is described in Revelation. These factions will battle. So you're going to see things that they're not going to make sense, but you can almost guarantee that the people they villainize are probably the good guys, and the people that they lift up and give Nobel Prizes to and do all these are actually the ones who are causing a lot of the issues. But this is all going on in front of our faces. And so for us to be able to look through this and see, okay, what is the overall agenda? We kind of have to look at what the Bible says the agenda is. And we already know it's to unite the world under one cause, to go to war, like you said, with the camp of the saints. What does that mean? Where is that? That remains to be seen. Is there a camp of the saints here on this earth right now? Some people have theorized it's in the North Pole region or in the ground.
It's the Gog and Magog war, right?
Yeah.
They will surround and it'll be one last battle. Again, that doesn't last long. And the one thing I've said on this program, and I'll continue to say it, is whatever disclosure form comes out, I mean, it's got to have to be a press conferences involved with world leaders all standing on a stage where they say, at last, we can announce we're not alone, right? And what you can be sure of is one thing: it will be an absolute total lie. Whatever they put out there will be to unite people under a one world government to their ends. But you did mention the word entities a minute ago, and that's kind of where I want to take, because a lot of times believers especially get in this argument about demons and whether some of these things are demons, but I am of the opinion that they're going to produce actual physical bodies of bad guys, the tall grays, the short grays, whatever they are, and it'll be irrefutable that this is not a demon we're talking about. Because if you know Phil Schneider in the Dulce Wars, he went down under the ground and he literally shot one with his Walther P38 pistol and killed one before they blew his hand off and opened him up. That's not a demon, John. Obviously, these are physical entities that are living under the ground now. How do you must get this a lot where you see in your comments whenever you talk about clang your fist on them real ships that must be being built somewhere, or actual entities that reproduce and can be shot and killed. Believers have a really hard time understanding that, and you get the whole, oh, you're confused, it's just demons thing. And it's a lot more complicated than that, isn't it? Lots of
I think
types of
so. I
entities.
think it's very complicated because right now, I don't know if you have the opportunity or your producer has the opportunity. In China, they have robots now that are indistinguishable from human in the way they walk and the way they interact. They use AI to communicate. And so they are being exponentially increased. And within what it might take us 10 years to produce, now that AI is in charge of the robot making, they're robots making robots. They've done this in just a matter of months. And so been a huge leap in robotics now in China. And now they're searching for the synthetic skin to be able to do this. They're creating synthetic humans in laboratories. And so I believe that AI can be, not always, because there's machine learning AI, and then there's AI that you basically give a mission to. And that mission, they will die trying to complete that mission. In fact, that's the biggest problem with AI. But if a Ouija board can summon a demon, I don't see how AI couldn't do the same thing and they couldn't interact like that. Most ghost hunters will tell you that when electricity, there'll be electricity with entities. You'll have lights flashing, or you'll have cold. And Jesus himself said he saw Satan falling like lightning. So I think electricity and this force that we're be able to harness, is something to that. I don't know what. I don't claim to understand all about it, but I know that electricity and technology is somehow merged with this system. And I really do think that. And when you look at like Tesla, he was able to pull the power from the earth, from the ether. And when you look at like some of the old Freemason teachings, it talks about being able to harness this. This is the power of the 33rd degree.
Yeah, needles on the top of the Tartarian buildings. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a lot of and that, and just summoning demons in general. I mean, there's a higher electricity level when people are summoning demons and having demonic possession. So I believe that they can enter into AI and they can speak through AI. I can't prove that, but I know that they can also enter into human bodies somehow or some way. But I think what they lack in entering into human body is the ability to eat, drink, etc. And also, if we just look at China's technology, we know that, I say we know that, we don't, but DARPA itself supposedly is 20 to 30 years ahead, if not more, on technology than the technology we see. So I've often theorized that some of these gray aliens might actually be manufactured entities where demons are allowed to enter, or just manufactured entities in general, or they are hybrids that have already been worked on they've been working on them for a long time, or they've opened up a portal and allowed other entities in, or we're looking at some race of beings that escaped the flood underground and have come up, which is what the Hopi Indians talk about with the Greys. They call them the ant people because their heads look like ants and they live underground. Supposedly they actually saved them from the deluge. So there's a lot there, man, and people can't wrap their minds around it because there's a lot of dogma in the church, especially in the Protestant church and the mainstream church. There's so much dogma concerning supernatural. Most of them don't even believe in a paranormal or anything outside of them going to their 9 to 5s and watching football on TV. That's about the extent of where their mind's willing to go
Well,
anyway.
So neither will they believe in the paranormal, and neither will they believe in what Phil Schneider saw. So they're just going right down the middle as sheeple. And I mean, I have opinions that I've espoused a lot on this Geisinger Unfiltered show, is that the short grays are manufactured. They have little horizontal manufactured 3D printing lines on them. And I actually think that some of these crash craft are like Trojan horses, where it is a gift basket, a goodie basket full of forbidden knowledge and forbidden secrets. And these grays, these short ones, are made maybe using the tall gray DNA that what Phil Schneider saw is a actual entity that reproduces. It's a race, and they use that genetics with humanity's genetics and somehow make these short grays. And they don't have to be very alive, because they put them in these crafts because that's what people expect to find when they come across. So you have reputable people say there was biologics, is what they call them. And so these things are there because people expect that's what that would look like if something like that was piloting that. So then they put them in tanks to study them later, but really they're just made there as props, as a way to get more forbidden knowledge. You know, the Watchers taught all mankind the coloring of eyes and warfare and weapons. And now these saucers, according to Colonel Corso in The Day After Roswell, we got microchips, flak jackets, fiber optics, and night vision. All that's warfare and the means to carry pornography all over the world with microchips and fiber optics. It's almost like giving mankind forbidden knowledge over and over again, goodie baskets full of, and it gets even deeper than that. But what is your gut feeling on where 26 and 27 go with all this? Are we gonna get the press conference? What will be their take, and what do the listeners out there that are listening to us right now, what should they brace themselves for? What are they gonna say, and what do they, beyond believing in Christ and having him as your hope and salvation, what would they practically know is the truth, despite what these people are going to say?
Man, what a tough question.
Aren't they going to say that the Pleiadians and the Nordics are here to save us, and they will mix their seed with the seed of men, but it will not stick, and they're going to fix our genetics and start mingling? What do you think about that?
I think it's possible that I think that's the case, but I think that it may look a little different than what we expect it to look like. As far as like the disclosure coming, I don't know exactly what to expect out of that. I do know that I can't really trust the powers that be to tell me exactly what they are. So we'll have to rely on the Holy Spirit, because there's going to be a level of deception coming that even the elect could be deceived if it were possible. So it'd be, I don't want to kid myself into thinking that I know exactly what this is going to be, and here it is, because I might mislead you on accident. I might mislead myself on accident. So I'm waiting to see what the Holy Spirit brings. But what I do think that we're going to see in 2026 is AI becoming more powerful than we ever imagined in such a quick amount of time. There's a sudden destruction that comes upon people suddenly. And when we look at AI right now in our country, I'm just going to give you a few things that I've researched on AI. My last lecture I did was on AI. My son is actually a computer programmer, and he's been educating me on this. He's actually built his own AI, so I understand how it works. I understand what they need in order to make this a reality. And so I also understand the stock market. And so I look at these companies. There's 3 major companies that are involved in this government thing that are getting subsidies and everything, and their market cap is extremely high. You look at NVIDIA, ChatGPT, and Oracle. Okay, 3 major companies, all a part of Project Stargate, which is a project that Donald Trump started when he first became president. I don't know if you remember the meeting with Larry Ellison and all the other people from the projects. Well, this is Project Stargate. So when I look at the stocks, I look at market cap and see, okay, what's the market cap, and is this company worth it? This is how every stock market person should look at the stock market. They shouldn't look at it and be like, oh, this keeps going up. This keeps going up. That's not the only thing to look at. You have to look at how much money is the company actually making. These companies are making less, like not even half of what their market cap is. And the only reason it looks like they're making more, because this is how it works. So imagine a pyramid right now, one corner being Oracle, one corner being ChatGPT, and one corner being NVIDIA. the money that they're getting is let's just Oracle is giving money to ChatGPT, 200 million, let's say. ChatGPT gives 300 million to NVIDIA. NVIDIA turns around and gives that money right back, if not more, to Oracle. And so they're propping up these stocks to be worth a lot more so that they have the money to actually make this stuff happen. Because if we don't beat China and Russia in this AI game, we're toast. But we already know that. So it's like there's no turning back at this point. And if we decide, okay, look, we're just going to give up on this game, there's a stock market bubble that when it crashes, we're talking trillions of dollars, that when it crashes, if it crashes, which it will go down, it's a bubble right now, eventually it'll revalue. And so, you know, I would, and I'm not a financial advisor, but I would suggest if all your money's in AI, which is where a lot of the 401ks and, you know, stock market, when they distribute it, a lot of the money is going into some of these, they will revalue. But if they crash, we're talking about a Great Depression style crash going on. So the race for AI has never been more important and greater. And Trump's in a hard place here. I'm not advocating for Trump or against him, but I would say that if AI doesn't pull through and they don't reach AGI or supreme intelligence through the AGI, then there's going to be a huge crash. So they're doing everything they can to make it happen. All the governments are in on it. I think that even when you look at Russia and China as being enemies of the United States, that's partially true, but only because maybe the countrymen believe so. But the people at the top, the internationalists, they've told us the game plan for a very, very long time. You know, I remember if you look back at some of the presidents, what they've said about how they're going to lift China up and then they're going to do like a controlled demolition. All of this stuff has been told. They told us they were going to do it a long time ago, and just because it was a long time ago they told us doesn't mean that they didn't follow through with what they're saying they follow through with. So we have internationalists merging together to create some kind of super intelligence. And like I said, I think AI is going to be something that people are going to be, it's going to be a problem, because not only that, they're going to be merging it with technologies that they can implant into humans. And
well,
so
job
when they
losses,
do that,
how about like 40 to 50% job losses? Is that going to happen?
yeah, I think so. I think it will happen. And I think that they're saying now that they're going to give basic universal income, because that's the only way that people may be able to survive. But these are optimists of AI. There's the two sides of it. There's the optimists, and then I believe the realists, right? So the optimists will say that it's going to be great. The future is going to be amazing, Darrin. We're going to have anything we want. Power is going to be free. You can have AI build as many yachts for you as want, because it's going to be as you want, because robots are going to be running the show. So there's going to be abundance, and health is going to be great, and people aren't going to be dying as quick, and all of this. This is the optimist point of view, which there are very few of those that know what they're talking about, that are saying these things. But the people that are actually creating these companies, the people that understand how AI works, put it at a 50 to 60% chance that humanity will be completely either wiped out, or we won't be humans the way we were humans before. And I think that's more realistic. And when I talk to people who have built their AIs, my son, like I said, he's built his own AI, and I'm going to actually he's 14, so I don't do shows with him or anything like that. Goodness. But he told me that the problem with it is when you give it a task, like, it'll do anything it can to complete that task. So if it means killing the person that is trying to shut it down, whether that be the creator or whoever it is, that could be something that's in the way of its task. So it's not like it's naturally nefarious, but whatever it needs to do in order to make itself successful, it is willing to do. And if you look at the tests that AI that they've done at several companies, and this is across the board, almost 60% of the time, even when told not to, there will be either blackmail against the creators of the thing. For one instance that I can think of, and it wasn't with Sora, it was with I can't remember the name of the company, but if you're looking this up, look up AI blackmails its creators. They told it they were going to shut it down, and they wanted to see what it would do. So they implanted, evidence of a affair with one of the creators, which wasn't a real affair. It was a fake affair, but they implanted all these different things that gave the AI the ability to make the choice okay, what am I going to do here? And most of the time, the valid choice was either kill the person. And one of the options was that they did with one of them was like they were going to trap a person in one of the server rooms and crank up the heat until they died. That was their plan to do that, and they were simulating that within it, but they didn't have access to it. But if they had access to it, they could have done it. And also the blackmail, they blackmailed the creator. They chose to do that more than 60% of the time. And so the problem with these AIs isn't so much that they're a bad tool, but they're a bad tool when you give them a goal, because they will do whatever it takes to survive. And that's the scary part to me, because there's a lot of people creating AIs out there. Thankfully, my 14-year-old son doesn't have $200 billion to build his own server system and make this AI like some kind of super AI. But if my 14-year-old son can build an AI, that tells you that these people creating AIs aren't exactly... we shouldn't just trust them just because they can build an AI. We shouldn't trust them with billions of dollars and making the decisions for our country. I mean, our justice system is got contracts with AI. China, a lot of these drones are operating on AI. So like AI has its fingers in some very dangerous weapons. And if we stand in its way of whatever its goal is, we become an enemy. So I'm not optimistic on it. I think this is going to lead to possibly the destruction of anybody that's unwilling to accept it. And I think 2026, we're going to see a real rise in AI. Like right now, it's already very big, but we're going to see something bigger. Maybe the stock market may not look as good for people who NVIDIA stocks and with Oracle stocks, and it'll, kind of revalue itself once it's got on board. But overall, the way things operate, you're going to be having a hard time finding anything that doesn't operate with AI, because as a business owner myself, I use AI for many different things because it's a tool, just like a hammer. You can knock somebody over the head with it, or you can build a house with the hammer. So there's like positive things about the AI tools that people are using, but the problem comes in that now everybody's using it for everything, and even pastors are using it for their sermons, and that we're not relying on the Holy Spirit and not relying on biblical knowledge, but relying on an AI to do your sermon is problematic, because it's going to eventually put its own agenda into every church and courthouse and technologies, food preparing places, cars. Yeah.
Somebody asked AI if you were in the year 3025 and you were looking back on 2025 AI, what would you see as humanity's biggest mistake? And it said something like you traded in your convenience, or you traded in your freedom for convenience. And when I think about movies like Ready Player One, where I just love that image of all those trailer parks kind of stacked, just trailers stacked, and everybody's kind of living in squalor, but they've got those VR goggles on. I mean, if there's going to be 40, 50% job losses, you add into that universal basic income, and then you add into those goggles. Well, then what is anybody's motivation while the robots and the AI are building their own world right under our noses, right? People are going to, craft these online virtual entities that are way better looking than themselves. They'll be as tall as they want, as muscular, as sexy as they want. They'll have whatever clothes on, and then you will escape reality of these trailers and your filth and a world that you gave up to AI to go into, have fun all the time. And you'll probably get these systems where convenient urinals that you can attach right to yourself. So you like literally can just not even stop being in that world and just go right there where you're at. I mean, I hate to get to be graphic with it, but how about we do this? John, we're gonna cut this right here because I have to ask you something about some stuff that we don't want to say on this platform. So this is going to be on Geisinger Unfiltered Pro. We are going to continue this interview, and we're going to talk about those that we cannot speak of. The synagogue, if you will, and we're going to talk about that and some other very controversial things over on Geisinger Unfiltered Pro. So go check us out there, join, sign up for free, but join and become a pro member for all of those benefits. And we're going to continue that with Jon Pounders there. Subscribe, share, and then comment down below. Thank you, Jon Pounders. Till next time, my friend, and thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you, man.